I used to work in the local IT department of a hospital owned by a large for-profit hospital system. Corporate IT ran the network. Local IT ran desktop support and were the hands of corporate IT for anything they couldn't do remotely. But local IT did not report to corporate IT, we reported to the local hospital administration. In theory, we were one happy family, but there was a large disconnect between corporate IT and local IT. Our leader of local IT was IT Director Brillo. Brillo was not a technical director by any definition. He was strictly an administrative director. However, corporate IT would send him information as if he were a technical director. Anything Brillo didn't understand, he would simply ignore. Anything that changed without notice would be blamed on corporate IT not caring. One day Brillo received an email that he didn't ignore. Corporate IT was adding a new Wi-Fi network for hospital employees to use with a slightly higher priority than the guest network. Brillo told administration and medical staff that this Wi-Fi network was available everywhere. Not just in the hospital buildings, but at home. On the road. On vacation. No need to pay for internet, you've got the physician's wireless. Brillo called it the physician's wireless so he could say that corporate IT wanted it restricted to medical staff only, but he'll do you a favor and have one of his guys hook everyone else up too, you know, because local rules and corporate drools. Or something like that. Once we explained to that Wi-Fi doesn't work like that, and that this wasn't a cellular connection of any sort, he of course blamed corporate IT for being cheap and limiting the range. We thought he might get in at least a little bit of hot water for his claims, but no. In the end, we had to explain to everyone the limits of the Wi-Fi, set everyone up that wanted it, and Brillo went back to ignoring corporate IT emails. Alright, like many of you, I have been inspired by Mr._cartographer. I am also a fellow civil servant, having worked for local government entities ranging from my state, local authorities, and municipalities over my career. This is a story from when I was working at an airport. I have generalized the names to remain somewhat more anonymous. I don't give anyone permission to reuse this if that really even matters when you post something to Reddit. A bit of background. 1. Most of the airlines use a central company called Central Airline Systems Monopoly for everything: boarding passes, marketplace, baggage, etc. When you fly and have to go up to the counter, odds are the agent is using some kind of interface that connects to the old-ass mainframes hosted by Central Airline Systems Monopoly. If Central Airline Systems Monopoly or some part of Central Airline Systems Monopoly goes down, so do the airlines. Central Airline Systems Monopoly is the one ring that controls them all. 2. Airlines use special printers and provide backtabs to the printers. Think of the backtabs basically as template files for your airline boarding passes, bag tags, etc. Central Airline Systems Monopoly downloads the backtabs to these printers every time a connection is made to their systems. 3. The airport I was at is a common use, CU, airport. The airport owns all of the physical hardware the airlines used. That includes printers, servers, routers, computers, monitors, kiosks, etc. The airlines own the software, and there is a vendor that kind of interfaces between the airlines and the airports to assist with issues for the common use system itself. Sound like a clusterfuck? You have no idea. I once asked a visiting implementation engineer about how he dealt with all the bullshit that came with being entangled between the airlines and airports. He basically told me no one has died as a result of our systems. That comment set the bar really high in my mind for that wonderful system. Kind of a gray area there, assuming a pissed-off passenger never annihilated an agent and I just haven't heard about it yet. Hey, there is a reason why most airports have security and cops on site. It isn't just for terrorists. I worked on the CU system for years. I knew those systems better than most things, and I could determine what the issue was most of the time, whether it was the airport, airlines, or something in between. I still loathe that system to this day and have a ton of stories and lost time because of it. Do you remember when TSA PreCheck came out? It was a big deal, and I remember having to upgrade the firmware on hundreds of printers in order for the TSA PreCheck backtab to work properly on the on-site printers. It took me weeks to get it done. So it went pretty smoothly except for one certain airline that could never get their TSA PreCheck tickets to print. Their system would only ever print out normal boarding passes even if it was for TSA PreCheck. It was a problem at my airport and a couple of other places including Heathrow, in London, UK for returning passengers. Safe to say, there were literally hundreds if not thousands of passengers that were pissed off because of this. I felt terrible for the ticketing agents and I had to answer tons of tickets for this not working with no resolution since I was powerless to fix it. It really bugs me that these folks were taking the brunt of berating from the airline's loyal customers. This went on for close to a year. The airline was blaming the airports, common use vendors, hardware vendors, and vice versa. The main focus on fixing the problem was with the printer firmware. Well, I can tell you that nothing ever amounted from that approach. The engineers for the printers were based in Europe, so nothing ever really got done. Nothing was ever urgent in this particular country and I can't say I blamed them. The citizens of this country get like 2 months or more of vacation a year and they use it. This is what I learned from talking with their US support engineer. It's not an insult to Europe, it was just a reality in having to deal with certain problems related to the equipment. Nothing just got done quickly. That approach never made much sense to me because I had pretty tight contacts with other CU airports and hardware vendors. CU was so bad to work with I reached out to others for help at times. I knew the type of printers we had were printing this airline's TSA pre-check stuff without an issue at other airports. I expressed this over the months to the involved parties' communications about this problem and nothing ever got done about it. Some lowly network guy from the airport didn't know a thing about anything. It was always we are waiting on the printer engineers to release new firmware. I finally took a shot in the dark and reached out to a guy I knew at Central Airline Systems Monopoly that focused on a different airline to ask him if he knew anyone that worked on the problematic airlines side of things. Backchanneling is always a good skill to have. Anyway, that dude asked 2 friends and those folks asked 2 friends and so on. Think Wayne's World. It just so happened that so many people were on the email chain that it hit the target spot on. One developer just said of course it doesn't work because this airline ordered a restriction for the TSA pre-check back tab on your airport, Heathrow, and a few other airports. I never knew or understood why this restriction was in existence, but it had to come from some high-up executive, VP type of person. I found this out and reported it to my contacts at this airline. Welcome to discover the person who had sole authority to lift the restriction was on vacation for like a month and no one could get a hold of them. The person just happened to check their email one day a couple of weeks later and immediately questioned why the restriction was ever in place and to lift it immediately. Once the restriction was lifted, I went out to have the airline's ticket agents print a test boarding pass to check out at the TSA checkpoint and it passed. When I reported back to the ticketing agents, they gave me a round of applause. I have other stories from the airport I might share. This is just one of many. Standing in the dining room with my future wife and other future relatives. My darling future niece, 5-year, said, "Uncle T, can I play a game on your computer?" I said, "Sure." A minute passes and my darling future niece loudly exclaims, "The dinosaur won't let me." I catch the eyes of every adult around me and land on my future wife. The future wife says, "I know what she means," and heads over to fix the problem. I hear beeping noises I've not heard before. Still perplexed by WTF is going on, I walk over to see my future wife playing a side-scroll game with the dinosaur. And that's the story of how a seasoned IT guy learned about the Chrome browser's built-in video game. Used to entertain PPL when the internet is out. Short and dumb like me. Electrical maintenance supervisor bought a new printer for 11x14 schematics because 8x11 honestly doesn't cut it. Originally, he had it in his office, but it was getting cluttered in there, and he wanted to move it out to a common area. Printer rule number 1, if the printer is happy, don't mess with it, don't touch it, and definitely don't move it. He broke that rule twice. He wanted to move another, far more commonly used, printer to a different location to keep his new one closer to his office. Lasi so needy. So, while waiting for IT to show up after a ticket was put in, we moved the printers around. The second printer at my suggestion was moved closer to other supervisors who used it more frequently than anyone else, and when IT showed up, that was the printer he decided to start working on first. He connects to the network on a phone to view and change settings and starts trying to make adjustments. While he's doing that, I'm giving the electrical supervisor grief for having all this silliness being done. The IT guy is having trouble getting everything to work on the 8x11 printer, and I make the joke that he should just swap the cables in the patch panel. I say a joke, because while I figured that's why that patch panel exists, I have no idea what our IT team is allowed to do for corporate requirements, and I'm not about to get this guy in trouble. He stops his work though and admits he never even thought about that. Swaps the cables around, and the 8x11 works again. Huzzah. The 11x14 is still printing random gibberish at random times of the day, and I am not about to try anything with drivers and print servers. Nope. Long-time lurker, first-time posting. I currently work for a media solutions company that primarily deals with VDS panels, basically, a TV that only displays assigned media content from our servers, and media players connected to digital displays in movie theaters and bars. Earlier this year we had a movie theater that was having issues with 3 of its media players connecting to the location's network. After exhausting all level 1 troubleshooting over the phone with the location, we decided to send out a tech to perform on-site troubleshooting. Fast forward to 2 days later, tech is on-site and calls into support for directions on what to do. Yes, it was included in his work order, but reading has now become a lost art apparently. The call is transferred to me by a T1 agent, as T2 and above are the only agents that can deal with network issues with any location. The people in this call are as follows. Me, obviously me. Tech on site. TSE, higher support. The call went as follows. Me, thank you for calling company. I work at tech support. My name is Me. How can I help you? Tech, yes, this is Tech at job ID 1,234,567 calling in for further instructions on why I am here. Pulls up ticket. Me, yes, this location seems to be having issues with 3 of their media players connecting to the network. Tech, how do you know? All their displays are playing or displaying content and movie trailers, posters. Me, we cannot access the media players remotely and are showing they have been offline for 3 days now. Also, our media players will still display content for 30 days even while they are offline, but once that content schedule expires the media player will default to a black screen or the company logo and the display will eventually power itself off due to inactivity. Tech, oh, do you know where the media players are located? Me, yes, all of our media players are installed in the network room in the ISP network rack. Ask the manager on duty to take you to the network room. Tech, the manager said they don't in network room. I am now thankful this isn't a video call because my facial expressions are a dead giveaway of my frustrated confusion. Me, what? Are you sure you are talking to the manager and not the box office attendant? After a brief pause. Tech, oh hold on, the kid I was just talking to is going to get the GM. Me, perfect. As you can tell, this is already going downhill and I've only been on the phone for less than 5 minutes sometimes. I wonder where my company finds some of the 1099 techs to work some of our jobs. Tech, okay, I am in the network room, but there are 5 different tracks in here with thousands of network cables running everywhere. Me, is there a rack that has an SX network label on the top? Long pause. And all I can hear is clicking like someone is sending a text message. Me, hello, are you still there? Tech, oh sorry, my wife was texting me about our dinner plans. Yes, he actually told me that and continued to finish his text message before answering my question. Me, okay, do you see a rack labeled SX network? Tech, yes, it has 7 square boxes all with different labels. Me, do you see the following 3 media players: SX1, SX2, SX3? Tech, yes, the SX1 player, the network cable is broken, RJ45 clip and just hanging, and the SX2 and SX3 players do not have any network cables attached at all. Me, okay, let's see if we can locate the SX2 and 3 players network cable. Do you see any random unplugged Ethernet cables directly around the SX2 and SX3 players? I now start praying to the tech gods that the 2 network cables that are unplugged are the only 2 that are unplugged and that we are not facing a ball of cable spaghetti where we are going to have to figure out what cable goes where. Tech, I found 2 network cables. They are the only 2 I see, but The clips are also broken off the RJ45 end. Perfect, looks like we are going to replace the 3 RJ45 ends and reconnect the cables to all 3 players. Tech, okay, I'm going to have to go find the GM again because I'm going to need to locate the breaker box to cut the power to the entire theater to replace those RJ45 ends. After a brief pause. What? Thinking I misheard what the tech just said. Tech, I'm going to have to go find the GM because I'm going to need to locate the breaker box to cut the power to the entire theater to replace those RJ45 ends. I can't cut the ends off of those cables with the power on or I will be electrocuted. At this point, I realize I had heard him correctly the first time and I am not crazy. Tech, hello. Your chances of being electrocuted by cutting Ethernet cables to replace the RJ45 ends are extremely low. Ethernet cables are only 48 volts DC, which is not a true electrocution hazard. The GM isn't going to let you cut the power off to the whole theater while customers are currently watching movies. You can cut and replace the cable without cutting the power to the entire theater. Tech, no. I will be electrocuted and I'm not dying so a movie theater can display digital menus and posters. We are not asking the GM to cut the power to the entire theater to fix the RJ45 end. You can trace the Ethernet cable back to the modem or hub and disconnect it from the other end and then there will be zero risk of electrocution while cutting the cable to repair it. Tech, no, it's not even worth fixing an old cable. Too much effort for questionable results. All 3 cables will need to be replaced. Head meets desk. Do you have 3 20-feet Ethernet cables that can be used to replace the existing cables? Tech, no. Okay, so we will need to replace the RJ45 ends. Tech, yay, I don't feel safe doing that. You will need to send a new tech to replace the 3 cables cable because I'm not getting electrocuted replacing those ends. If you unplug the cable at the other end there is zero risk of electrocution. Tech, yay, I'm not doing that. At this point, I am ready to yeet myself off a cliff. Thinking on the fly I remember a temporary fix I have used at home when I didn't have a replacement RJ45 end. I needed to get these players online to push updates for the weekend release of 3 major movies even if it was just long enough to update the 3 players. Do you by chance have 3 rubber bands? Tech, yeah. Okay, can you take 1 rubber band and wrap it around the broken RJ45 ends on each cable and plug them back into the media player? Tech, yay, but I don't see the point. I just need to get these players online long enough to push the updates for 3 major movies opening this weekend. After that, I could care less if they stay online until I can send another tech to replace the RJ45 ends. While I wait for the tech to attach the rubber bands to the broken RJ45 ends I send my higher support a Teams message. The tech at job 1,234,567 is refusing to replace the RJ45 ends on the Ethernet cables because he will be electrocuted. He does not have 320-feet replacement cables and will only replace the RJ45 ends if he can cut the power off at the breaker to the entire theater. TSE. Am I having a stroke? Nope, haha. TSE, did you tell him to unplug it from the other end and the chance he will be electrocuted goes to 0? I now think I am having a stroke? You realize who you talking to, right? Of course, I did, and he refused and stated he would only replace the ends if he could cut the power to the entire theater. I am having him place rubber bands on the broken RJ45 ends and plug them back in, and I will dispatch a company tech to replace the RJ45 ends next week. TSE, the rubber band trick that should work until we can revisit. Also, code the tech and make dispatch aware that this tech is to never be assigned to any of our jobs again. Already done. Tech, okay, all 3 media players have the cables plugged back in. Okay, get your sign-off sheet from the GM and email it to company@iarcat.org, mail to company@iarcat.org, and I will get you checked out and cleared from the site. Tech, okay. While I was waiting for the tech sign-off paperwork, I pulled up the location's media players and Splashtop and all the players were online. I pushed the updates to the 3 players, and they started downloading. The tech sends in his sign-off sheet and I close out the work order, making sure to notate in the notes for dispatch to never assign this tech to any of my department's jobs again. I open a new dispatch ticket and make sure to notate to only assign a company tech to this job. I happened to be off the day the tech was back at the location, but they repaired the 3 broken RJ45 ends and the network issues were resolved. No, they were not electrocuted and did not cut the power to the entire theater to do so.